The large silver spaceship called Celestial Harmony hung in Earth's orbit for 3 months before its crew decided to make contact. Inside the ship, Ambassador Zerdek of the Veldarian species paced nervously. His blue skin shimmered under the soft lights as he prepared for humanity's first meeting with aliens. "Are you certain we understand their communication properly?" Zerdek asked his science officer. Chief Science Officer Krelmar looked up from his data screen. All 4 of his yellow eyes blinked one after another, showing that he was thinking carefully. The Taxani were known across the galaxy for their logical minds and careful approach to everything. "Our translators have processed their global networks for months," Krelmar said. "There are still some strange idioms and cultural references, but basic communication should function at 98.7% accuracy." Zerdek nodded. "That will have to be enough. The Council expects results. We need to establish formal relations with these humans and assess their technology level." "Their technology is unusual," Krelmar said. "Advanced in some ways, primitive in others. They seem to develop tools through very non-standard methods." "What do you mean?" asked Zertek. "They appear to value something they call innovation. Over systematic approaches, it's most puzzling." The landing shuttle took them down to the United Earth Space Agency headquarters, where human representatives waited. Zerdek felt the familiar flutter of excitement that came with meeting a new species. Humans would be the 47th species to join the Galactic Confederation. If all went well, the human delegation stood waiting on the landing pad. 5 of them, dressed in blue uniforms with silver badges, watched as the alien shuttle touched down with barely a sound. The wind blew across the desert facility, making the humans squint slightly. Director Alan Clark stepped forward as the alien visitors emerged. He was a tall man with gray hair and a serious face, though he smiled warmly as he approached. "On behalf of Earth, welcome to our planet," he said, giving a small bow. "I'm Alan Clark, Director of International Relations for the United Earth Space Agency." The translator device on Zerdek's chest hummed quietly before producing perfect English. "We are honored by your welcome, Director Clark. I am Ambassador Zerdek of the Veldarian Diplomatic Corps, representing the Galactic Confederation. This is Chief Science Officer Krelmar of the Saxani Science Academy." The introductions continued down the line of humans. Then Director Clark gestured to a woman standing slightly behind him. She had dark curly hair and wore a lab coat with several pens in the pocket and what looked like grease stains on the sleeves. "And this is Olivia Martinez, our resident wizard of propulsion systems," said Director Clark. The translator on Zerdek's chest made a strange buzzing noise. Krelmar's 4 eyes all widened at once, a sign of great surprise among his people. "Pardon?" Krelmar said carefully. "Your translation matrix appears to have substituted a term from your mythology. Wizard implies mystical abilities and impossible feats through supernatural means." The humans looked at each other, and several smiled. Olivia Martinez stepped forward with a friendly grin on her face. "Just means I'm good at my job," she explained, "especially when things go sideways." The aliens exchanged confused glances. "Sideways? Was this some reference to spatial orientation in engineering?" "I believe," Zertek said carefully, "there may be a cultural misunderstanding. In our society, professional titles are precise and literal: engineer, technician, systems specialist. These terms leave no room for confusion." Director Clark nodded. "I understand we use more colorful language sometimes. It's just our way. Olivia here has 3 doctorates in advanced propulsion theory and has designed our newest drive systems. She's brilliant at solving problems no one else can figure out." "I see," said Zertek, though he clearly didn't. "So, wizard is a term of professional respect, not a claim of supernatural abilities." "Exactly," said Olivia. "Would you like to see our labs? We're working on some pretty exciting stuff." As they walked through the facility, more wizards were introduced. Greg Powell, the computing wizard with thick glasses and a constant smile. Natalie Freeman, the materials wizard who could seemingly create new alloys on demand. and Steve Ramirez, the robotics wizard whose creations moved with almost lifelike grace. Each time, the alien delegation grew more confused. These humans were clearly skilled professionals, but the terminology suggested something beyond science. Something that made both Zerdek and Krellmore deeply uncomfortable. During a brief moment alone, Krellmore whispered to Zerdek, "Do you think they actually believe in magic? Could this be some sort of religious terminology that our cultural studies missed?" "I'm not sure," Zertak replied. "Their technology is clearly scientific, not supernatural. Yet they persist with this mystical terminology. Most curious." The tour ended at a large testing chamber where Olivia Martinez was demonstrating a new engine design. The aliens watched as she explained complex principles of physics and engineering to her team. "The problem is in the containment field," she said, pointing to a holographic display. "We need to reduce the particle drift by at least 0.03%, or we'll never get stable output at high speeds. The simulations show it's impossible with current materials," said one of her assistants, a young man named Paul. Olivia smiled. "Then we'll have to get creative, won't we? Let's try reconfiguring the field generators and running a new simulation with adjusted parameters." As they worked, Krellmore watched with growing interest. These humans followed scientific principles, certainly. But there was something different about their approach. They made intuitive leaps that seemed to skip several logical steps. They tried solutions that seemed, to his methodical mind, completely irrational, yet sometimes they worked. After the demonstration, as they returned to their shuttle, Zertek made notes in his official report. Humans use perplexing terminology that suggests belief in supernatural forces. However, their actual work appears based in science. Recommend further cultural study to understand this contradiction. Engineering methods are unorthodox but occasionally effective. What neither alien could know was that in just 2 weeks they would witness firsthand why humans called their best engineers wizards, and it would change their understanding of humans forever. Back on their ship, Zertak added one final note. Despite odd terminology, recommend proceeding with cultural exchange program as planned. Humans show potential for unique contributions to Confederation knowledge. 2 weeks passed since the first meeting between humans and the alien delegation. The cultural exchange program was going well. Humans and aliens worked together on a joint space station called Harmony Point, which orbited Earth as a symbol of cooperation between species. Ambassador Zertek had just finished sending his daily report to the Galactic Confederation Council when the emergency alarms began to sound. The piercing noise made his sensitive ears hurt as he rushed to the station's command center. Commander Diane Rivera, the human in charge of Harmony Point, was already there. Her face looked serious as she studied the large screens showing the station's systems. "What has happened?" asked Zerdek, trying to stay calm. "Micrometeorite shower," Commander Rivera said without looking away from the screens. "Multiple impacts on the eastern section. We have damage to life support systems and power distribution." Chief Science Officer Krellmore entered the command center with 3 Texani engineers. They immediately went to workstations and began running calculations on their data pads. "Commander," said one of the Texani engineers after a few minutes, "our analysis shows critical damage to primary and secondary life support systems. The backup system cannot maintain proper atmospheric conditions for more than 17 hours. The station's AI confirmed this with a calm voice that seemed out of place during an emergency. Atmosphere will reach critical levels in 17 hours. Complete evacuation required. Commander Rivera frowned. "What's your assessment, Chief Krellmore?" The four-eyed alien spoke with certainty. "The damage is extensive. We cannot repair the systems with available resources in the time remaining. Logical solution is to evacuate all personnel to Earth and return with proper equipment and replacement parts." The Texani engineers nodded in agreement. Their species valued logical, methodical approaches to problems. They had already calculated every possible solution using standard procedures and found none that would work in time. Commander Rivera tapped her fingers on the console. "Not happening. We're not abandoning this station." Krellmore blinked his eyes in sequence, showing confusion. Commander, with respect, our calculations are precise. There is no standard procedure that can fix these systems in under 17 hours. Standard procedures won't cut it, Rivera said. She pressed a button on her communication device. Get Sam Edwards up here, now? 5 minutes later, a human man hurried into the command center. He wore blue overalls with many pockets full of tools. His brown hair was messy, and his shirt had a large coffee stain on it. He looked like he hadn't slept much recently. Zyrtec recognized him as one of the junior engineers from the Earth team. He had met Sam briefly during the welcome tour, but hadn't spoken with him much. You called, Commander? Sam asked already, looking at the damage reports on a small tablet he carried. Sam, we need your magic touch, Commander Rivera said. Life support is failing. We have less than 17 hours before we need to evacuate. Sam scrolled through the data on his tablet. You want me to pull a rabbit out of my hat? More like life support out of spare parts, Rivera replied. Zyrtec didn't understand these strange expressions, but he could tell they were discussing the emergency. Krellmore stepped forward. With respect, Commander, this situation requires a systematic approach. Our engineers have already determined the task is impossible in the available time frame. With respect, Chief Krellmore, Sam interrupted, still studying his tablet. I think I can jury-rig a solution, just need a few hours and some elbow grease. Now Zyrtec was completely lost. Jury-rig, elbow grease? The translator seemed to be failing again with these strange human phrases. You believe you can repair the life support systems? Zyrtec asked, wanting to be clear. Not repair exactly, Sam said, finally looking up. More like create a workaround. A temporary fix that'll keep us breathing until the proper parts arrive. Krellmore looked doubtful. How can you create a solution that our best engineers have calculated to be impossible? Sam shrugged. Sometimes you have to think outside the box. Can I see the damaged sections? Commander Rivera nodded, and they all followed Sam to the eastern section of the station. The damage was worse than Zyrtec had imagined. Several walls were dented from impacts. Behind access panels, complex machinery sparked and hissed. The air smelled of burning plastic and metal. The Taxani engineers scanned everything with their devices, collecting data and running more calculations. Meanwhile, Sam walked around, looking at the damage with his eyes, occasionally touching broken parts with his hands. This is interesting, he said, examining a destroyed control panel. Interesting is not the word I would use, Krellmore said. This is catastrophic. Sam didn't seem bothered by the alien's pessimism. I need to gather some supplies. Can I take parts from non-essential systems? Commander Rivera nodded. Do whatever you need to do. I'll also need help, Sam added. Can I get Pete Jackson and Maria Gonzalez up here? Already called them, Rivera said. They're on their way. Zyrtec watched as Sam began working. The human moved with surprising speed, removing panels and disconnecting components that seemed random to the ambassador. The Taxani engineers observed with growing concern. He is not following any standard repair protocol, one of them whispered to Krellmore. Indeed, Krellmore replied. His approach appears highly irregular and potentially dangerous. When Pete and Maria arrived, Sam quickly explained his idea. The three humans began working together, talking in half-sentences that somehow made sense to each other. If we take the processing unit from... Already on it, Maria said before Sam could finish. What about the cooling system? Pete asked. I'm thinking we repurpose the water recycler from the kitchen. Sam replied. The aliens watched in growing alarm as the humans took apart various systems from around the station. They collected parts from the gym equipment, kitchen appliances, and even entertainment systems. This is most concerning, Zyrtec said quietly to Krellmore. They appear to be dismantling functional systems with no clear plan. I have observed that humans sometimes act on intuition rather than logic, Krellmore replied. But this seems extreme even for them. Hours passed as Sam and his team worked. They built a strange collection of mismatched parts and non-standard connections. Wires and tubes stretched across the floor in patterns that made no sense to the alien observers. 16 hours until critical atmosphere levels? The station's AI announced. Krelmer approached Sam, who was connecting two devices that were clearly never meant to work together. "Engineer Edwards," the alien said formally. "May I ask what methodology you are employing?" "I do not recognize this approach from any standard engineering practice." Sam looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "No standard practice here, Chief. We're improvising." "Improvising?" Krelmore repeated the word as if it were completely foreign to him. "Yeah, making it up as we go along," Sam explained. "Sometimes you have to get creative when the usual solutions won't work." Krelmore's four eyes blinked rapidly in distress. "Engineering is not a creative art. It is a precise science with established procedures." Sam just smiled and returned to his work. "Maybe that's the difference between your engineers and our wizards." Ambassador Zerdek could not believe what he was seeing. The human engineers had been working for 8 hours straight, taking apart various station systems and rebuilding them in ways that made no sense. They had created a strange collection of parts on the floor of the damaged section. Wires connected devices that were never meant to work together. Pipes from the kitchen now ran alongside computer components from the entertainment systems. 10 hours until critical atmosphere levels, announced the station's AI in its calm voice. The alien delegation had been watching the humans work with growing concern. Several Taxani engineers were taking notes, their four eyes blinking rapidly in what Zerdek recognized as extreme stress. "This cannot possibly function," Krelmer stated as he observed the chaotic assembly. "The integration lacks coherence." Linsura, a young Taxani engineer who had been especially interested in human culture, moved closer to Maria Gonzalez. The human woman was connecting a series of small fans from the gym equipment to a control board that had once been part of the kitchen's food processor. "Engineer Gonzalez," Linsura asked politely, "may I inquire how you determined these components would be compatible? Did you run simulations?" Maria looked up from her work and smiled. "No time for simulations." Sam figured most of this out in his head. Linsura's eyes widened. In his head? Without calculations? Well, he did some quick math on his tablet. Maria explained, "But mostly he just knows how these systems work. He has a feel for it." "A feel?" Linsura repeated, clearly not understanding. Sam Edwards was now in the center of their makeshift system, connecting the final wires to a control panel he had built from scratch. Pete Jackson handed him tools before he even asked for them, as if the two humans could somehow read each other's minds. "How does Jackson know which tool to provide?" Krelmore asked Zerdek quietly. "I have not observed Edwards making any requests. I do not know," Zertak admitted. "Their cooperation seems almost telepathic." Sam stood up suddenly, wiping his hands on his already dirty overalls. "I think we're ready for a test." Commander Rivera, who had been monitoring the situation from nearby, stepped forward. "What exactly have you built here, Sam?" "It's basically a hybrid life support system," Sam explained. "We've combined the backup oxygen generators with parts from the water recycling system to create a temporary atmospheric processor, the GIM. Fans help circulate the air, and we're using modified food processors to filter out carbon dioxide." Krelmer stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his doubt. "But these systems were not designed to interact." "How did you determine the correct connections?" Sam scratched his head. "Well, at the basic level, a lot of these systems work on similar principles. Electricity is electricity, pumps are pumps, and filters are filters. I just had to figure out how to make them talk to each other." "Talk to each other?" Krelmore repeated. "These are not sentient systems," Sam laughed. "Figure of speech. I meant how to make them work together." "And you determined this how?" Krelmer pressed. "Experience, mostly," Sam said. "I've been taking things apart and putting them back together since I was a kid. After a while, you develop a sense for how things connect." This explanation did not satisfy the Taxani scientists, but they had no time to ask more questions. 8 hours until critical atmosphere levels, the AI reminded them. Let's fire it up, Sam said, moving to the makeshift control panel. Wait, Linsora said, stepping forward. Should we not evacuate to a safe distance first? If this fails, it could cause an explosion or release toxic gases. Sam looked at Commander Rivera, who nodded. Standard safety protocols still apply. Everyone. Back behind the emergency bulkhead. Sam, you too. They all moved to safety, and Sam activated the system remotely using a tablet. At first, nothing happened. Then they heard a loud groaning sound, followed by several loud clanks and a high-pitched whine. That doesn't sound good, Pete said, looking worried. Give it a minute, Sam replied, watching the readings on his tablet. New systems always make weird noises at first. The aliens exchanged alarmed glances. In their experience, machines that made unusual sounds were machines that were about to fail. Yet Sam seemed unconcerned. After a tense minute, the noises settled into a steady hum. Sam's face broke into a wide smile as he looked at his tablet. Oxygen levels are rising, he announced. Carbon dioxide is dropping. Temperature is stabilizing. It works? Krelmer asked, unable to hide his surprise. It works, Sam confirmed. Not pretty and not permanent, but it'll keep us breathing until the repair ship arrives with proper parts. Commander Rivera patted Sam on the shoulder. Good work, wizard. The humans all smiled at this, while the aliens once again looked confused. I must ask, Zertic said, why do you continue to use this term wizard when Engineer Edwards has clearly employed scientific principles, not magic? Commander Rivera looked thoughtful. I suppose because what he did seems almost magical to those who couldn't have done it themselves. Sam solved a problem that your engineers who are very smart and knowledgeable calculated was impossible. But it was not impossible, Krelmer pointed out. Therefore, it was not magic. That's kind of the point, Sam said. The best engineers push the boundaries of what seems possible. We find solutions where others see only problems. Linsara had been examining the makeshift life support system from a safe distance. But how did you know this configuration would work? You did not follow any standard design, Sam tried to explain. I used what engineers call first principles thinking. Instead of following existing patterns, I broke the problem down to its most basic elements. We need oxygen, we need to remove carbon dioxide, we need to circulate air, and we need to control temperature. Once I identified those basic needs, I looked for any parts on the station that could perform those functions. The aliens listened carefully, but still seemed puzzled. But the uncertainty factor would be enormous, Krelmer said. Without simulations and careful testing, how could you be confident it would work? I couldn't be 100% confident, Sam admitted. I made my best educated guess based on my experience and knowledge. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. This phrase made the aliens even more confused. Faith was a concept they associated with religion, not engineering. Perhaps, Zertic said carefully, there are aspects of human engineering philosophy that we do not yet understand. That's putting it mildly, Commander Rivera said with a smile. But now you've seen a human wizard at work. The emergency repair would hold for the next 3 days, giving them plenty of time until the supply ship arrived with proper replacement parts. The aliens continued to observe the makeshift system, taking detailed notes and measurements. What fascinated them most was how Sam Maria and Pete could tell when something wasn't working right just by the sound it made or how it vibrated. They would adjust settings without taking new measurements, somehow knowing exactly what needed to be changed. It is almost as if they have a connection to the machinery that goes beyond data and calculations, Linsara told Krelmer. Perhaps. This is what they mean by wizardry. Krelmer considered this. Perhaps. But I believe there must be a scientific explanation for their abilities. We simply have not discovered it yet. A week after the life support emergency, Harmony Point was running normally again. The supply ship had arrived with proper replacement parts, and the station systems were back to standard operation. But something had changed among the alien delegation. They looked at the human engineers differently now. Ambassador Zertic had requested a special meeting with the Galactic Confederation Council. He stood before the large screen showing the 12 council members from different alien species. Honored council members, Zyrtec began. I wish to propose a new initiative in our exchange program with humans. I believe we should study their engineering methods more closely. The council leader, a tall being with silver skin, leaned forward. We have reviewed your reports about the incident on Harmony Point. Most concerning was the humans' disregard for standard procedures. That is precisely what makes them interesting, Zyrtec argued. Their methods are unorthodox but effective in crisis situations. Chief Science Officer Krelmar believes there may be valuable knowledge to gain from studying their approach. Krelmar stepped forward to join Zyrtec. Council members, the human engineers accomplished what our calculations determined was impossible. They did so using what they call improvisation and intuition. These concepts are not well represented in our engineering education. After a long discussion, the council approved a special observation program. Krelmar would lead a team of Taxani scientists to study human engineering practices on Earth and in space. Meanwhile, the humans had their own ideas about cultural exchange. Commander Rivera invited Linsura and several other alien engineers to participate in what humans called a hackathon. What is the purpose of this hackathon? Linsura asked as they entered a large room filled with humans working at tables covered with tools, parts, and computers. It's a competition where teams try to solve engineering problems in creative ways, Commander Rivera explained. We give everyone the same challenge and limited time. The team with the best solution wins. Linsura looked confused. But if the problem has a best solution, why not simply calculate it? Rivera smiled. Because there isn't just one best solution. There are many possible approaches, and sometimes the most unexpected one works best. The aliens were assigned to different teams. Linsura joined Sam Edwards and 2 other human engineers. Their challenge was to build a device that could sort small objects by color using only the materials provided in a box. Linsura immediately began calculating the optimal approach, but Sam was already digging through the box, examining each part. Should we not first determine the most efficient design? Linsura asked. Sure, Sam said. But sometimes you don't know what's possible until you see what you have to work with. Over the next 4 hours, Linsura watched in fascination as Sam's team built, tested, failed, and rebuilt their device many times. They didn't follow a single plan, but adapted constantly. When one approach didn't work, they quickly tried another. Most surprising to Linsura was how they handled failure. When something broke or didn't work, the humans didn't seem upset. They laughed, joked about it, and moved on to a new idea. There was none of the careful precision that Taxani engineers valued. Yet somehow, progress happened quickly. By the end of the hackathon, Sam's team had created a working sorter using a light sensor from a broken camera, motors from toy cars, and a control system made from a modified game console. It wasn't pretty, but it worked better than most other teams' devices. How did you know to use the game controller that way? Linsura asked Sam after the event. Sam shrugged. I used to modify gaming systems as a kid. Learned a lot about their internal components. But that knowledge is not part of standard engineering education, Linsura pointed out. That's the thing, Sam said. Some of our best ideas come from experiences outside our formal education. Hobbies, random interests, even mistakes we've made in the past. This concept was completely foreign to the Taxani, whose education system was carefully structured to eliminate wasted effort and random exploration. Meanwhile, Krelmar was observing classes at the Earth Engineering Academy. He sat in the back of a classroom where Professor Eleanor Wells was teaching a course called Engineering Intuition. Intuition isn't magic, Professor Wells told her students. It's the result of experience and pattern recognition happening faster than your conscious mind can process. The more systems you work with, the more patterns you recognize, the better your engineering intuition becomes. Krelmar made careful notes. This approach to education was very different from Taxani methods, which focused on memorizing established procedures and calculations. After class, Krelmar approached the professor. Your teaching methods are most unusual. You encourage students to experiment without first mastering the theoretical framework. Professor Wells nodded. Theory is important, absolutely. But hands-on experience helps students develop a feel for how systems behave in the real world, not just on paper. A feel, Krellmer repeated. This was the same strange concept Sam had mentioned during the emergency repairs. The professor smiled. I know it sounds vague to someone from your culture. Think of it as pattern recognition that happens so quickly. It seems like instinct. 2 months into the observation program, the aliens were still struggling to understand human engineering practices. They had gathered enormous amounts of data, but couldn't quite capture the essence of what made human engineers different. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A training accident at the underwater research facility near Hawaii created a crisis situation. A critical fault developed in the habitat's pressure regulation system. If it failed completely, the entire structure could collapse under the enormous pressure of the deep ocean. Ambassador Zyrtec and Krellmer happened to be visiting the facility as part of their observation program. They watched as Chief Engineer Vanessa Wright responded to the emergency. Instead of checking manuals or running simulations, Vanessa closed her eyes for several seconds. She seemed to be visualizing something in her mind. Then she began giving clear, confident instructions to her team. She's in the zone, one of the junior engineers whispered to Zyrtec. The zone? Zyrtec asked quietly. It's a mental state where everything comes together. Like her brain is working at maximum efficiency? Within 30 minutes, Vanessa's team had implemented a solution that wasn't in any manual or emergency protocol. They rerouted systems in ways that shouldn't have worked according to standard engineering principles. Yet the pressure stabilized. After the crisis passed, Krellmer approached Vanessa. How did you determine that solution? Our calculations indicate it should not have worked. Vanessa looked tired but satisfied. I've been working with pressure systems for 15 years. After a while, you develop a mental model of how everything connects. In an emergency, I can run through scenarios in my head faster than any computer simulation. But the uncertainty, Krellmer began, is always there. Vanessa finished his sentence. Engineering isn't about eliminating uncertainty. It's about managing it. Sometimes you have to trust your experience and take a calculated risk. As they left the facility, Zyrtec turned to Krellmer. I believe I finally understand what humans mean by wizard. They are not claiming supernatural powers. No, Krellmer. Agreed. They are describing a highly developed form of experiential knowledge that allows them to solve problems through methods that appear magical to observers who lack the same experience. It is still most unusual, Zyrtec said. But I cannot deny its effectiveness. 6 months after first contact, the Galactic Confederation and Earth prepared for a special celebration. The new Human-Alien Engineering Academy would open today, the first joint educational project between the species. The large building stood near the original United Earth Space Agency headquarters where the aliens had first landed. Ambassador Zyrtec adjusted his formal diplomatic robes as he prepared to give the opening speech. Chief Science Officer Krellmer stood nearby, reviewing his notes one final time. Both aliens had changed during their time on Earth. They still looked the same: Zyrtec with his blue skin and Krellmer with his 4 yellow eyes, but they thought differently now. Are you nervous, Ambassador? Asked Commander Rivera, who would speak after Zyrtec. A bit, Zyrtec admitted. This represents a significant shift in our approach to engineering across the Confederation. Change is always scary, Rivera said with a smile, but usually worth it. The large auditorium filled with humans and aliens. In the front row sat Sam Edwards, Olivia Martinez, and the other human engineers who had impressed the aliens with their unusual skills. Behind them were students from both Earth and 23 alien worlds who would form the first class of the new academy. Zyrtec stepped to the podium and the room grew quiet. Honored guests, future students and friends, he began. When we first came to Earth 6 months ago, we believed we understood engineering. We thought it was a precise science with clear rules and established procedures. We were wrong. A murmur ran through the audience. Aliens rarely admitted being wrong about anything. The humans have a strange habit, Zyrtec continued. They call their best engineers wizards, at first. We thought this was simply an odd cultural term, perhaps a translation error. But now we understand they were describing something real, something valuable that we had overlooked in our own approach to solving problems. Krellmore stepped forward to join the ambassador. The two aliens had prepared this speech together. As a scientist, Krellmore said, I was trained to follow logical steps and proven methods. When I met human engineers who claimed to solve problems, through intuition and feeling, I was deeply skeptical. It seemed irrational, perhaps even dangerous. Krellmore's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, showing thoughtfulness. But after observing humans during several crisis situations, I have concluded that what they call wizardry is actually a sophisticated form of problem-solving based on experience, pattern recognition, and creative thinking. Zyrtec nodded. What appears magical to an observer is often simply knowledge applied in unexpected ways. The humans have shown us that there is more than one path to solving complex problems. Sometimes the standard approach is best, but sometimes, especially in crisis situations, we need what humans call thinking outside the box. In the front row, Sam Edwards smiled. 6 months ago, the aliens hadn't understood simple human expressions. Now they were using them in formal speeches. This new academy, Zyrtec continued, will combine the best of both approaches. Students will learn the methodical precision that has served the Confederation well for centuries. But they will also learn human-style creative problem-solving, hands-on experimentation, and yes, even engineering intuition. The audience applauded politely. Some of the older aliens looked uncertain, but the younger ones seemed excited by the idea. To demonstrate what we mean, Krellmore said, we have prepared a special challenge for our first class of students. The large screen behind them lit up, showing the Harmony Point space station. But something was different. New sections had been added with unusual shapes and unfamiliar technology. This is the Harmony Point Expansion Project, Krellmore explained. It combines Confederation standard designs with new human concepts. Number. Single species has all the knowledge needed to complete this project. It will require both our methodical approach and human creative thinking. Commander Rivera took the podium next. The first class of students will work in mixed teams, humans and aliens together, to solve the engineering challenges of this project. You'll have the best teachers from both worlds to guide you. She gestured to the side of the stage where Professor Eleanor Wells stood with a tall Taxani engineering instructor. But you'll also need to learn from each other. That's the real lesson here. After the ceremony, there was a celebration with food and drinks from many worlds. Sam Edwards found himself talking with Linsora, who had decided to stay on Earth as a student in the new academy. I still don't fully understand human intuition, Linsora admitted. But I want to learn. It takes time, Sam said. And lots of practice. You have to make mistakes to develop good instincts. Linsora's eyes blinked rapidly. Making mistakes is not encouraged in Taxani education. That's going to be the biggest challenge, Sam said with a laugh. Learning that failure is part of the process. Across the room, Ambassador Zyrtec was speaking with Director Alan Clark, who had first introduced the aliens to Olivia Martinez, the Wizard of Propulsion Systems. There is one thing I still don't understand, Zyrtec said. Why specifically? The term wizard? Your planet has many words for skilled individuals: expert, specialist, master. Why choose one from mythology? Director Clark thought for a moment. I think it's because good engineering sometimes feels like magic, even to us. When someone solves a problem that seemed impossible, there's a sense of wonder, like witnessing a miracle. Expert just doesn't capture that feeling. Zyrtec nodded. Slowly, I believe I understand now. It is not just about skill, but about inspiration and possibility. Exactly, Clark said. A good engineer follows the rules. A great engineer knows when to break them. And the best engineers, the wizards, make you believe that anything is possible. Later that evening, a small ceremony took place aboard Harmony Point. Commander Rivera led a group to the section where Sam Edwards had created his makeshift life support system during the emergency months ago. A small plaque had been installed on the wall. It read, "Where science ends, wizardry begins." Sam looked embarrassed when he saw it. "That's a bit much, Commander." "No, it's perfect," said Krellmore, surprising everyone. The usually serious alien actually had a small smile on his face. "It marks the spot where two approaches to engineering began to come together." On the observation deck above Earth, Zerdek looked out at the beautiful blue planet below. When he had first arrived, he had expected to find a primitive world with limited technology. Instead, he had found something much more valuable, a new way of thinking. In his report to the Galactic Confederation Council, Zerdek wrote, "Humans may not have the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but they possess something equally important: the ability to see beyond established knowledge and imagine new possibilities. What they jokingly call wizardry might be their greatest contribution to the stars." The first joint human-alien engineering project would be completed 2 years later. It would combine the precise calculations of alien science with the creative innovations of human engineers. And when it was finished, even the most skeptical aliens would understand why humans called their best engineers wizards.